Happy Saturday. Welcome back to Stable Discussion. Today we're going to be talking about Obsidian and specifically my setup as an AI developer. I spend a lot of time thinking about AI and where it's going, and I do a lot of research constantly to be able to better understand what new things I can do on a daily basis. My Obsidian is really my knowledge store for a lot of this data that I'm constantly pulling in and being able to organize for myself to be able to better utilize things as I go. We'll talk a lot about how I have that set up here. I've gotten a lot of questions about the look of this. We'll talk about my structure. I focus on discoverability, not productivity. So if you're looking for a productivity hack, this probably isn't it for you. Otherwise, we're also going to talk about AI dev tools. I'm an AI developer, so I, of course, really like leveraging AI. We'll go through some of the workflows that I use to be able to push nodes into Obsidian as fast as possible. And then lastly, just some helpful utilities that I really like to use. So without further ado, we're actually going to get started. We're going to start from where you are, fresh place. So let's talk about what it's like when you've got a new Obsidian setup here. So I've just created a new Obsidian vault inside of an iCloud folder, and that's where we're going to get started here. I'm on the latest version here, and right away, we're going to start jumping into appearance. And so I'm going to actually go into appearance here. We're going to go into manage, and I'm going to jump into finding primary. Primary is a theme that I use. I really like it. It has this bubbly feel. So we can install and use that. And immediately you're already getting some more of that kind of appearance that my current Obsidian has. So it starts to feel a little bit nicer, a little bit softer. I know some of you out there really love using dark themes. It's got a really great dark theme. And this really makes me pop. So I think I'm going to use this. There we go. Shrunk myself down a little bit so you can focus more on Obsidian than my face. I know you like my face, but hey, we're going to shrink it down for now. Now, step 2, I'm going to go into my community plugins. You need to turn that on. So we are going to now be able to access all of the community plugins that are available. I'm going to pull in style settings. So we're going to install that guy. Cool. And then we're going to turn that on. And now you can go in here and you can actually customize a lot of the different aspects of the interface for what you've got set up here. I'll do a quick look through now and just see if there's anything specifically that I overrode. I don't really think there is. I have configured other settings in the past. This is really great if you want to change some of the aspects of the interface. Say you don't like the font and how that font is set up. You can change some things in there. You can change the font size. You can change all sorts of stuff in here. This is just a really great way that if you wanted to override some of the theme settings, you can get at them this way very easily. Another plugin I like is Iconize. So Iconize is really great because I use this for being able to put icons on a lot of the different folders that I use. So we're going to install that guy as well and enable it. And so now we can actually go in and we're going to add to this notes one. We're going to change the icon. I'm going to do a pen. Let's see. I have a specific one that I really like, but we can add a pen icon here. So now this is just my notes folder here. And you can set up all sorts of different folders this way, right? So now we've got some just basic folders set up with some icons on each of those. The only one that really has stuff in it is this notes one that has my AI stuff in it. So that's pretty nice. It gives it just a better feel in a way. Another step is when, say I've got this little script here that I want to run, you can do some things on it. Say it's shell, but I also like having a little title attached to this. So one that I like to install as well is another one called Code Styler. So I like having this guy installed. There's some configurations we can also add to that. So I like to get that guy set up here. In the code block styling, I also like to come down here and update the display header language icons. So I update this guy to always, as well as actually I do like having the language tags as well, just so it's obvious what language we're using. I'll set up something like that. And now you can see it's got a nice look to it. So it's a shell, it's shell code. It's got the shell here, and then it's got the description in there. So I just really like the way that makes my code look. Additionally, I like to bring in another one as well for when I look through my code. And this one's called Code Files. So one nice thing that you get with this is you can actually, now that I've added that guy, we can go in here and when we look at this code, we can actually edit that code block in a full editor. And it just gives you a little bit more space to work with. And so you can open up those files and edit them directly in there. I find that a lot easier than trying to manage this inside of Markdown. It's just nice to be able to open it up as code and work with it that way. Now, I like to also add a home page. And so I'll go ahead and get that started here. And this I'll start setting up as well. What I just did there is I actually started getting these properties ready because I'm going to start adding some CSS classes. So one thing that I like to do is I like to have like different sections inside of my home page that basically store files for me to work with. And so what I'll end up doing is I'll start making some like tables for things that I'll be storing in here. But the thing that's a little jarring is like you have these tables that are full width here, but these titles aren't centered. And so what I really like to do is I add a CSS class called center titles. And now I'll talk a little bit about how to get that set up. So let's actually just create a new folder, a new file in the inbox. This is going to be style setup. And so let's talk about centering rules for titles and images. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a CSS file here, and this is going to be titled main.css. And let's go ahead and in here, I'm going to just paste in some of these guys. So what I actually usually do is like when I'm actually pasting in code, you paste as plain text, and that'll actually paste it in directly. And then you can update and adjust it a little bit. So in any case, these are the rules that I use for being able to center images and center titles and the like. So now when we go back to our home page that we created here, and I've added these center tiles. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add this main.css file, and it's actually going to live in a very specific spot. And this is going to be in .obsidian/snippets. And then there's going to be a main CSS file inside of there. And then once you've done that, what you need to do is you need to go into appearance, and then you'll see there's a CSS snippets at the bottom of appearance. And when you click, this will start actually applying those. And now look, your CSS configuration is now driving this. You've got those center titles there. And so that file is getting picked up. And now we've got these beautiful homepage getting started here. Similarly, I have this also set up for images. So let me import an image here really quick. So I added this image here. So you can see it's nice, like it is rounded. That is actually getting picked up in here. You'll see this border radius on the Markdown preview there. So it's going to round any of the previewed items from that. But what we can also do now is we did have this center images class as well that we can configure. And so now if I go in here and I also add center images, that image also snaps to the center. Just a nice snippet, helps out with a bunch of different things there. So now we've got our theme in, we've got some nice code editable stuff going in there. Next, what we're going to do is we're also going to go in and we're going to change the color of our side nav. So I'm going to paste in this file here. This is a pretty sizable file actually. So this file has a bunch of different stuff set up here for a bunch of different colors that exist. And then it's got a theme light and a theme dark just to be able to be responsive there. It's also going to have a bit of padding changes, just a bunch of different nice to have things to bring these files a little bit closer together. Let's apply this guy as well. And after we've created that file, we're going to scroll down here and you'll see that guy exists as well. So we're going to enable that. Interesting. Okay. We learn something new every day. It looks like when I do apply this, you can see it in the background here. It is changing that display a little bit. But the other thing that I didn't realize that I had also done is inside of the File Explorer and Bookmark section, you can actually toggle some of this stuff on here, and that can actually drive a lot of those colors too. So that's actually great. You can change there to be backgrounds on them. But yeah, so suffice it to say there's a ton of options in here as well that you can use to set that up. I actually do like this. Those defaults actually feel pretty good to me. I'll include this as a snippet that you guys can go and check out. While this is like definitely one way of doing it, it's not the only way. And so that's actually really where style settings can come in and do a lot for you. So at this point, we've got a setup going that works pretty well. There's a few things that I want to tweak though. So one thing is you saw when we included this sample SVG to PNG example here, it went into that folder. What I actually want it to do is when we upload new files, they should go into the correct folder. Oh, while we're hunting for this setting, I do actually like having slash commands on. Really nice to have. Okay, so then you can find this inside of files and links. There's this default location for new attachments. If we go take a look at that guy, what we actually want to do is in a folder specified below, and we want that to just be the assets folder. So any new attachments, files that come in, we actually want those to be bucketed into that assets folder. We don't want them to just go at the top level. We want to be able to control where those go. Additionally, I do like to use paste image rename. And so what this will do is it'll actually rename the image. So I'm going to install and enable that guy as well. So what we just need to do to use this one is we just need to go into the paste image rename. We're going to go auto rename image here. And so now when we drop this guy in, it still doesn't work. That's cool. So you can also do handle all attachments here, and which will always rename them to something here. That's actually what's going on with this guy. Makes sense. So I'm dragging and dropping an image on here, right? So now this is home PMG. Paste in another one of those guys. You'll see we got home one PNG. Really nice. It helps me just keep these things ordered and structured a bit here. Okay, let's talk about a couple of the other structural things that I do. So another thing that I like to do, so I have a number of these different folders. So there we go. Now I've got a bunch of these folders all set up and ready to go here. What I like to have is I put my daily notes inside of this folder called daily. You can of course organize that really easily. Like you specify daily notes here. Any of these new files can go into a specific folder like this. So you can just do daily there. Now, when I open up this guy, I create a new daily note. It immediately goes into that. So that's like my daily notes. I have my inbox where all kind of stuff I'm currently working on, but I'm not like really quite finished with will go. Notes is just a big folder. I just throw kind of everything in there just generally. I don't think about that folder being structured in any way. What I'll do is I can search through it. I can use command line tools for that. I can use AI tools for that. I just don't put any structure on the notes folder. Assets, again, these are all just my images, things that I've pasted in. I just like having a folder specifically for that. My maps is any sort of these structured maps of content, some of these things that I might do. I also may add icons to some of these as well, just so they stand out a little bit more when I'm looking at them. Areas, again, this is just a place where I put specific focus points where I know I want to structure that set of documents in a specific way. So that's where I'll put those. Resources, these are highlights. This is not stuff that I've written or ideas that I've had. These are like raw documents that I'm just importing. I also may put PDFs and stuff like that in there. Excalidraw, this is where all the Excalidraw files are going to go. We'll go ahead and actually import that. Additionally, on top of Excalidraw, I like to use their AI settings as well. Excalidraw actually generally tries to put itself in a very specific folder. So what we actually do need to do is when we talk about the Excalidraw folder here, we want to set that specifically to the folder that we have, which I guess is the 6 folder there. And then for Excalidraw, there are a ton of utilities and things that you might want to use. For me, I do some of the Excala AI stuff. So I'll often always install this extra script here. I think you also need to move where the scripts are located as well. Cool. Now you can see this guy is installed here. Now we got to go in and we got to add our API key and stuff like that for that. But anyway, I do like to use that sort of stuff as well. I'll put in some templates here as well. I use a bunch of different templates, but we'll just add the base one for now. The base mode that I like to use for this is I have a contributors file here. I have a set of tags, and then I have a creation date. In general, this is the kind of template that I like to use. And for that, we're going to add another community plugin called Templater. So I'm going to install this guy and enable it. We'll go into the options here. We need to point to the template folder, which is there. So now when we go back to our daily note, can I do Templater, insert template modal, do base. Now you can see right away this gets configured. So now we've got that guy set up. And so now we're ready to go. Any of the new notes that we set up are going to come with this. You can do a lot of things with templates. This is just the basic setup that I have, but I'll put a bunch of different ones in there depending on what kind of work I'm doing. And then there's an archive folder. I don't use this a ton, but I use this often for old projects and stuff that I'm not actively looking at. And I just put it in there so I can filter it out if I need to based on what I'm doing. So in terms of structure, that's really how I generally structure things. I do really like having a home folder. I like having these sort of hub files that link out to other files and help me structure things. One of the main ones of those that I actually really like to do is I have a like research questions file as well that I'll usually create. And what I'll end up doing in this guy is I'll have pending questions. And then what I'll do is I'll be like, I'll start asking some sort of questions like, are AI agents going to change AI tooling for education? And then what I'll do is from that, I can actually create a note from that. And then that can be a question that then I go and do some research on. I just really like having a research questions space where I can look through a lot of these different kind of like research items. And so I can always get to that through this homepage. So I'll often put that inside of my maps as well. So now let's talk about a little bit of the AI tooling that I like to use here. For me, one of the plugins that I really like to use is called Text Generator. And this is just a very basic tool, doesn't do too much here. There's a lot of other tools that do something very similar, but effectively for me, this just gives me a bunch of different providers that I can use. I can specify a model that I specifically want to use, like 4.0. I put in my API key, so I'll add in an API key there. And then, you know, we're pretty much off to the races at this point. So now if I go back to like my daily note and I take some notes about like, what I did today. So yeah, so what I'll end up doing is I'll end up coming up with a list of my daily notes here, and then I can just run text generator, generate text. And so you can see here now this output a nice little set of text there. Additionally, I actually really like to know what stuff was generated by AI. What I'll do is I like seeing the errors when they happen, and then I also like to see the output generated in a block quote. Now, if I run this guy again, generate text, you can see that this guy now outputs it in an AI little wrapper here. It's just really nice for me when I go through my notes to be able to tell what an AI generated versus just what I've written. I just like that distinction. You can imagine like when I have like a bunch of stuff that I've done throughout a day, I've got all my engineering notes that I've been recording. It's just nice to get a quick summary of just like what happened that day. And then often I'll have a hub for the week, and then that'll link to all of these. So let me show you a little bit what that looks like. So I'll generally create a little file like this that I'll use to track some of my like work time that I've worked on something. So let's say I worked for an hour today on all of this stuff. What I can do now is I can go to that file, I can grab out the details of this day specifically, drop those in the description here. And then what I want to do is I want to update this automatically and summarize all these columns. So for that, I actually use the table tool, which is called Advanced Tables here. So let's install that guy here. Need to actually enable that guy. There we go. So now we've got our advanced tables function over here, and I can just click this function button here, and this will actually evaluate all the formulas on the page. And so this formula that I wrote down here, it actually summarizes all of this specific column for column 2, and it'll summarize those all up and give me a total at the bottom. So you can imagine if I had a couple more days here and I had a few more hours, when I finally click on the summarize, it'll actually add those rows up in a nice way for me. Again, this is pretty far away from like Excel, but at least it gives you a nice space to be able to do kind of everything in one place. And you've got these links directly to those notes, which I just find really handy to be able to just track where things are going on day to day. Again, now we've got this other one here, so now we can add that as well as like a nice little work time guy in there. If you really wanted to align all the items center, you can do that as well. So just like right click on those guys, align those center. It does start to look a little bit nice there. So I use another tool called Auto Note Mover. So let's install and enable this guy. This will actually move any note from a folder that I have into another folder. It's based on some sort of a title or a regex or something like that. So let's say I had a work title here, and let's go make a folder for this. So I'm going to make a new work folder here instead of my areas. And so now when I have title that contains work in some way, I want that to get updated to go into this folder, basically. And that's what I'll do. So what I'm going to do now is I've got this daily note. Let's say it's some work that I'm doing. And I'm just going to set this to always update. So now it updated. You can now see inside of areas, inside of work, this new file just dropped in there. And then, oh, my work time also came in. What I might need to do is I'm going to make this into like lowercase work time. Now move that up into that folder, and now it won't auto move. That is the only thing that you do need to worry about with some of these, is because it's just looking for this phrase, you may get files that you didn't expect to just like pop into that folder there. Another thing you can do is like maybe make a code that works better for you. So now it might be WRK or something like that. And now when I do WRK, that now is going to update and automatically move there. Even if I try and move it back up, now when I rename that file or save it or move things around in here, WR, we move it, WRK, now it gets moved into that folder. So you can just see how that works there. So this is just really convenient because now whenever I generate new daily notes and I'm specifically making that note for a specific topic, it'll automatically get pushed into folders that are associated with that topic. So now I can have multiple daily notes all going concurrently. The problem is this is all hard to manage. So what I also use is I use another community plugin called Chronology. And Chronology is just like a really great calendar app, effectively. Let me enable it again. Keep forgetting to do that. So you can see here, this actually gives you an hour by hour summary of what files you've changed. And I just find it really nice for being able to go quickly look at a file that I just changed and be able to go in and update that. So it's really nice. It's got a nice calendar view and you can see per day what things changed and how they were changed. So I just find that really nice to use. Now, of course, on top of this, what I also like to use is I use Cursor to be able to do a lot of AI stuff as well. And so you can see that's actually what I use to edit the Obsidian folder and be able to go in and do the snippets in here. But this effectively is a coding IDE. But the nice thing about it is it has a lot of great AI integrations here. Summarize this in a block quote. So we can do that generation here. And you can see here, now it just created a new block quote. When we go back to our welcome page here, after I save, of course, now you can see this new block quote is running right in there. I find that really nice because working in Cursor, I'm really able to do a lot of things very quickly. So for instance, if I wanted to remove all links or something like that, you can see it'll actually go through and get rid of all of the links associated with this file here. Maybe not the best example, but I do like to use Cursor for this. So we've gone through the look of the interface here. We've gone through a little bit of how it's structured, what I use all these different folders for. We've talked a little bit about the AI dev tools that I've used. And we've briefly covered some of my workflows, but let's also talk about some utilities that I just really like to use. So for me, pulling stuff in, there's a ton of plugins I like. I'm just going to rapid fire through them. This video is already getting quite long. So one I really like is Obsidian. Obsidian pulls in all of your Goodreads books into a folder. I like that going straight into my resources folder, and I'll just make a folder inside of here that's books or something like that. And that's where all the Obsidian books will end up. Another one that I do use a lot is I actually use homepage. This will always make sure that that homepage is always open. I do that as well. I use my Kindle a bit for reading, so I do like to use this plugin to pull in all of my Kindle highlights. Language Tool is a really great spell checker, grammar checker. So when I do writing inside of Obsidian, this will do a really good job of giving me proofs and checks against the writing that I'm doing. It seems to be maybe like 60% of what a Grammarly would do for you, but I just really like it. It's a good first pass on just anything I write. Okay. The last one I'm going to go through that is actually really core to my setup, just realized, is Quick Add. Quick Add is an amazing tool here. What I like to do is I set up a capture, and this is actually going to capture to my daily note. And so I use a file name format. So I use _daily/date with the year, the month, and the day. And so you can See, it gives me a little preview of that guy there. I create the file if it doesn't exist. I do create the file with the template, which I'll use the base template for. I like to write to the bottom of the file. So if I've already created this file and I'm just adding new daily notes in here, I'll add that there. I do like to do a capture format as well on that, which I'll just paste in here. So this is my date, hour, and minute, and then followed by the value of what I've done and what I've put in. So now that we've got that guy set up, what I do is I go into my command palette and I pin a command. And this is going to be my quick add command for capturing a daily note. The other one I do like to put in there, now that I'm thinking about it, is the generate for generating text. I also put that guy in there too. So now it's very easy for me to get to those two, which I use quite a bit. I can now do a quick add. I can say, hey, I forgot to water my plant. So we'll do that. Click OK on that guy. And now you can see a new daily note got created, and it's time-stamped specifically to what I'm doing here. And you can imagine how this guy works as well. I'll set this up to create daily notes. I'll do this for work notes. I'll do this for a lot of different things. So now I can do quick add to a bunch of different places. When I rename that note to a specific file name, it'll move it into a folder. And so I do a lot of this sort of automated management of like where these files go. And that just ensures that like anytime I want to get something done really quickly, I can just write the note right away. And I have a lot of different tools that I use to be able to see where that file goes. I hope this was helpful, just to be able to give you a brief view into my Obsidian. We just went through like the look, the structure, the AI dev tools I use, some of my workflows and utilities that I use as well. If you found this interesting or entertaining, we'd love it if you'd like and subscribe. Again, if you ever want to find us, we're on blog.stablediscussion.com is where you can find us. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.